Welcome along, explorer. Quick question, who's ready for an adventure? Good, I'd hope you'd say that, because we're on one right now. It's time to leave planet Earth and search out the solar system in a brand new Fun Kids Science Weekly. My name is Dan. This is where we find all that really genius science that's lurking through the universe. And this week we're going underwater, plunging deep down into the ocean to discover how creatures there stay beneath the waves for so long.
The record-breaking ones can hold their breath for about 2 hours, and they go right to the deep ocean depths to search for giant squid, colossal squid, deep living animals like that, whereas dolphins, they feed much, much closer to the surface.
Also, we're on a mission inside your mind, investigating why you think, feel and act the way that you do.
When you reward a bit of behaviour, you change the likelihood of it happening in the future. And these rewards can be all sorts of things. It could just simply be a smile in a conversation with somebody else. Oh, somebody smiled at me. Perhaps I'll say that thing again. They like my joke.
And we're taking a look at a brilliant, strange, hybrid bear. It's all on the way in a brand new Fun Kids Science Weekly. Let's start with your science in the news. Australian tropical rainforests have become the first in the world to give out more carbon than they absorb. This is a problem because carbon helps to heat the world. It's one of the causes of the climate crisis. And rainforests are usually thought of as carbon sinks. They suck up more carbon than they give. They're the lungs of the world. That's a good thing. But the problem down under is scientists have found extreme temperatures have caused a lot of tree deaths. And these trees are now giving off more carbon as they break down. That means the forests are putting more carbon into the air than they're sucking in. And that's a bad sign. I think some experts are going to use some really genius science and technology to try and fix this in the future, and I can't wait to see what they come up with. Also, talking of science inventions, a first of its kind nuclear power station is to be built on Anglesey in Wales in the UK. It's getting billions of pounds in investment, this plant on the Welsh Islands north coast. It will have the UK's first 3 small modular reactors, although it could hold up to 8. Now, nuclear power is a different way of making energy by using nuclear reactions with radioactive atoms to create electricity. So it's clean energy, means we don't have to use fossil fuels, but there can be some difficult barriers to making sure this is done safely. So we'll find out more about this in the future, I'm sure. And our final story this week, the UK government has detailed for the first time how it will phase out animal testing. In its place will be new systems to mimic how our organs work. I think this is a brilliant idea because the more testing we can do without animals, the less harm that we're giving them. Surely that's a brilliant plan. Should we find out what's going to happen in its place? Barny Reed joins us from the RSPCA. Barny, thank you for joining us. So this is a pretty big move by the UK government. What's changing?
Hi, Dan. Yes, it really is. So scientists sometimes use animals in research that they do to try and learn things about how bodies work. Because in many ways, animals and humans are quite similar. So some people think that if you can learn about what happens when an animal is ill, you might be able to think of ways to help people when they're ill. Now, there's rules in place about how animals can be used in research, but of course, an animal won't feel great when they're ill, just like we don't when we had the flu or something like a tummy ache. So other people think we should be making more effort to find a different way to learn about how our bodies work.
Well, that's what I was thinking, Barny. It's 2025. I can get the answer to any question as soon as I want it. I can travel the world with satellites. We can send rockets to space. Surely we've got the technology, Barny. What ideas do we have for the future of this industry and science?
Well, these scientists can use cells taken from human volunteers, from their blood, for example, and do experiments using them outside of a body. One of these new technologies is called organoids. We have lots of body parts in our cells called organs, and they allow our bodies to do amazing things, like our heart pumps our blood around the bodies, our lungs allow us to breathe air around us and provide oxygen, which helps fuel us and allow us to do things. Now, imagine if you could recreate one of those organs outside the body. That's what scientists make in a dish with special ingredients called stem cells. Now, stem cells are really important cells in our bodies, and they are special tiny building blocks that can turn into any body part. So scientists can take some stem cells from a human volunteer and carefully guide them to help build mini organs in a glass dish. And then they can use these mini organs, or organoids to give them the proper name, to learn how real organs grow and to test new medicines to see if they're safe and to understand what happens when we're ill without having to test on real people or animals.
Wow, the idea of growing these organs in a small petri dish to see what happens from willing volunteers. That's a brilliant idea. Barney, what else might scientists be trialling?
We have engineers who are people who build things, and we have biologists who are people who are trying to understand why our bodies work like they do. These people have worked together to use those clumps of cells we discussed earlier that look like the ones we find in our heart, lungs or brain, and they've put them into little plastic devices called organs on a chip. They are called this because they're more like the microchips you find in computers, about the size of somebody's thumb. Once these cells are in the plastic devices, you can see what happens to them if you do something to those cells that might affect how they behave, or you can expose them to a potential new medicine and you have to see how it improves how those cells work. And a brilliant thing about these organs on a chip is that you can even do things to those devices that mimic the movements that happen, things like when food passes through our digestive system, like our stomach, or when we breathe air in and out using our lungs, all in cells kept outside the body. So this can help scientists and doctors better understand how the body works and how we might be able to make people better when they're ill. It's really exciting science. And they even think that one day I might be able to give my stem cells to them, for example, and they could create one organ on a chip that looks like my liver, another one that looks like my heart, another one that behaves like my stomach, and they could all be linked up to create my own personal body on a chip. And then they could use this to work out which specific medicine may be the very best one to treat me when I'm ill. How amazing does that sound? We could even have a Dan on a chip one day.
It sounds almost robotic. Now, that's a lot about kind of making something, really. I imagine, though, that in the future, surely AI is going to be able to do all this work for us just with some kind of computer modelling. Is there any ideas about doing that?
Excellent point, Dan. So, sometimes we have so much information, it's difficult to try and work out what it all means. AI uses a lot of computer power and it can help really make sense of it. So in this case, we have lots and lots of different potential medicines that might help someone with a particular illness. We can ask AI on our computers to go through all of that information about each of them and much more quickly work out which is the best ones to try and further develop. And we can focus our efforts just on the ones with the best chances of working. So this means we can do science much faster and develop new and effective medicines much more quickly.
And I imagine that you from the RSPCA, you're very much at the forefront of looking at animal welfare, that this announcement from the government, it's good news for you.
It really is. And this is something we've been working very hard for to achieve for a long while. So these technologies hold a lot of potential for how people will do better scientific research in the future. And the announcement from the government this week is really about how they will support the scientists making these amazing new technologies to keep on improving what they can do so we can do the best, most human relevant science in the years to come. It's great news for people and it's also great news for the animals.
Wow, it's been a real joy to chat to you and learn so much. Barny Reed from the RSPCA, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you so much to Barney for that brilliant description of all the fantastic ways that experts of the future could test out chemicals and medicines and see how they can help us. Thank you so much to Barny Reed for coming on the show. It's time for your questions then. And I love this part of the podcast. Seriously, I love doing the digging, becoming like a science Sherlock Holmes, squirreling through books, actual books, and online too, to discover the answers to the questions that you send as a voice note on the free Fun Kids app and at funkidslive.com. First question from Misha, who is 10. Hey Misha, thank you for this. You want to know, how do braces work? So, what happens, Misha, when your baby teeth fall out, when your milk teeth go? Big teeth come up in their place, right? Sometimes, because they need to squash into tiny little spots, they can do it a bit awkwardly. They can grow at funny angles. So over time, you may want to make those straighter. And that's where braces come in. Now, braces are normally neat little train tracks with a few elastic bands in there. You've got so many different types now. You've got fixed metal braces, clear or ceramic braces, aligners, lingual braces as well. Now, teeth are really, really strong, so it doesn't cause them any damage. But what happens is these braces, over time, they cause a constant force on them. They're always pushing, ever so slightly, moving them into a correct place. So, over the course of a year or so, they'll gently force your teeth into the place where they're meant to be when they first grow. So, maybe you've got some braces, maybe your older brothers and sisters, or you've got mates who have got braces. That's what's happening. They're just squeezing it ever so slightly over a little bit of time just to straighten them out, Misha. Thank you for your question. Let's get on another then. Fantastic, it's a voice note. Here's Maisie.
How long can dolphins hold their breath underwater?
Maisie, thank you for that question. How long can dolphins hold their breath for? I think it's normally like hours and hours. It's like really long, isn't it? And how do they do it? Is it their lungs? What's going on? Let's find out. Alison Wood is from Whale and Dolphin Conservation. Alison, thank you for joining us. How long can dolphins hold their breath for?
Well, dolphins are mammals, and so they breathe air into lungs, just like we do. They can't breathe underwater like fish. They breathe through nostrils, which are called blowholes, and they're found right on the top of their heads. They need to come to the surface to breathe, and then when they're underwater, they're holding their breath, and they can do that for a few minutes at a time. Average is about, I'd say, 8 to 10 minutes. Some of the bigger ones, like the Risso's dolphin, for example, who they dive a bit deeper because they like eating squid and they live in deeper water. They can hold their breath for about half an hour.
Wow, okay. I thought it would be much longer than that. Is it whales or something that can hold their breath for hours at a time?
That's right. Yeah, the bigger, the whales, whales like the sperm whales or the beaked whales, the record-breaking ones can hold their breath for about 2 hours. And they go right to the deep ocean depths to search for giant squid, colossal squid, deep living animals like that. Whereas dolphins, they feed much, much closer to the surface. And because they don't need to go so far underwater, they don't need to hold their breath for nearly as long.
Now, it's just another brilliant example of how evolution affects us. A creature doesn't need to go so deep, so it doesn't need to hold its breath for so long. Is it just training, Alison? Is there something special in a dolphin's lungs, that means they can hold their breath longer than we can? What do we know about that?
Yeah, they do store oxygen much better than we do in their muscles, for example. So it's not just about their lung capacity. But yeah, it's all about evolution because as mammals, they've evolved to live underwater. And so they've had to make amendments to make that possible. So if you think about it, we're just walking around in the air all day, so we can just breathe nonstop, whereas they need to breathe more occasionally. When dolphins are not diving down to look for food, when they're simply swimming along at the surface or either sleeping, then they just breathe far, far more regularly. Every 30 seconds or so, they'll take a breath. And at the surface, they'll open their blowhole, they'll breathe out first, and then they'll breathe in. So if they're doing something more relaxing or playing or more surface type behavior, then they're breathing more regularly. But when they dive, they need to go a little bit deeper. And you can imagine you wouldn't catch very much if you could only hold your breath for, say, 30 seconds. So they have evolved to hold their breaths for much longer than we can.
Well, it's really impressive to hear about. I thought that dolphins could do it for hours and hours, but I'm reading that the longest time a human has ever held their breath for is 29 minutes and 3 seconds. So that's not too far away from the longest a dolphin has held their breath for. So that's amazing that we're so similar to these ocean mammals, and it's been a real joy to chat to you all about it. Alison Wood, thank you for being there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maisie, for that question. And thank you, Alison, for coming on the show and talking to us all about those brilliant dolphins. All right, it's time for more creatures now. These are the stranger ones. often devastatingly deadly, where we hunt out the most weird, unique, and brilliantly bizarre things across the universe. Let's do Dangerous Dan. This week we're taking a look at a real beast with a mythical air, nature's hybrid. It's the GROLAR bear. Now you might work out a GROLAR bear, hear it from their name. Sometimes it's called a pizzly bear as well. It's a hybrid of a grizzly bear and a polar bear. Now those are two devastatingly dangerous creatures. This one, well, it's got the brutal strengths of both. It was once thought to be just an idea, but these have actually been spotted in the wild. They've been confirmed with DNA. It's got creamy fur, brown patches like a grizzly all over too. It's got a hump like a grizzly's back and a long polar bear neck. It has the curiosity and intelligence of polar bears and the aggression, the speed, the force of a grizzly. They've got a brilliant balance of strength and that speed. They're versatile hunters. They stalk prey on land, on the tundra and on ice. And experts think that this may have happened because of climate change. Because polar bears, they tend to live well on ice. Grizzlies, they live on land, on the tundra. That's where they hunt. But as the world changes and temperature shifts, they've got closer together. Polar bears are being driven south as their icy home melts. The grizzlies, they're heading further north where it's colder for them because their home is getting too hot. Normally they wouldn't be in the same place, but it's happening. These two different creatures, they're making new animals together, and it's the first time we've really seen this, normally found around the very north parts of Canada. They're big, they are brutal, and come on, they're a little bit brilliant. Look at what science has thrown our way, and that's why the GROLAR bear goes straight onto our Dangerous Dan list. For this week's Battle of the Sciences, where we try once and for all to discover what is the greatest science in the history of them all, we are looking inside your mind at what makes you tick and why you do some of the things that you do. We're talking psychology this week with Emeritus Professor Mark McDermott from the University of East London. Mark, you have 1 minute to tell us why psychology is the best science of them all. And that starts in 3, 2, 1, go!
Okay, well, psychology is important because it collects evidence so that we can better understand human behaviour, our thoughts, and our feelings. And in so doing, it provides real solutions to the problems that people and society have. And psychological knowledge can be applied almost in every situation involving human beings. Psychology studies every aspect of life, whether that be how children and young people develop, or how to be a great parent, or a great teacher, or a great doctor, nurse, or even a sports person. Psychology provides knowledge that helps us improve all sorts of things, including our health, our schools and colleges, the places in which we work, helping people to live their lives more happily, effectively, and productively. It focuses on the behaviour of individuals and also on the behaviour of groups of people, seeing what we do when we come together in large numbers.
Hey, Mark, that's your minute. Thank you so much. That's your minute. You see, I felt there was so much more. I'll ask you loads of questions, though, so that's brilliant. Psychology, so it's all to do with like what's happening in our mind. Now, with other sciences and other scientists I have talked to, it's much more easy to understand what they're looking at and how they're getting evidence, right? If you are an astronomer, maybe you're looking at a galaxy or a star, you can see if it's there, you know if it's not. Whereas like, you're looking at what's happening in our brain. How on earth are psychologists figuring out what we're really thinking, and how are you turning that into data?
Well, let's step back one there and let's just entertain the idea that actually psychology does more than just study the mind. I started by saying that actually what psychology does is study behaviour, which might include what you think and what you feel and what goes on inside this thing we call the mind. But also you can study literally what people do, and you can observe that, you can see it, just as you can see other things in the scientific realm. So by thinking about behaviour and what people do and studying that, it becomes something that we call is objective, something that can be verified by more than one individual. We can try and dip inside the individual and study what's going on in the mind. We simply do that by actually asking them to report what they're thinking, what they're saying. We use questionnaires, we use interviews, or we might take people and measure the electrical activity of their brain using what's called an electroencephalograph or a magnetic resonance imager. Very fancy equipment that looks at what's going on inside the brain as perhaps we're presenting different kinds of images or sounds or words to an individual to see which parts of the brain light up.
In your career, Mark, as a psychologist,
Yeah.
and as you've just said, it's about what people do by ourselves, maybe how we react with a big group of people. And in all the things that you've learned, what are some of the most amazing, almost phenomena or things that you've studied that people do? How has psychology helped you notice that?
I think one of the greatest lessons in psychology is one of the simplest, but that was demonstrated by a very famous American psychologist by the name of Skinner. And what he was really interested in was the effects of giving people rewards on their behavior versus maybe giving them a punishment. And what he observed from this, as makes entirely good sense, is that if you give somebody a reward after they've done a bit of behavior, they're much more likely to do that behavior again in the future than if you give them a punishment. And these rewards are really powerful in shaping our behavior. And these rewards can be all sorts of things. It could just simply be a smile in a conversation with somebody else. Oh, somebody smiled at me. Perhaps I'll say that thing again. They like my joke. Or it could be a financial reward. For example, we have salaries, don't we? Some of us who are lucky to be in jobs, and they occur at the end of each month. And we keep working and doing our job year in, year out, because we get that reward at the end of a month. So we can think about rewards very generally, but they're very powerful in shaping our behavior. And here's the profound thing. When you reward a bit of behavior, you change the likelihood of it happening in the future. And here's the kicker. You change the future. You change the probability that something is going to happen tomorrow, in the next hour. You influence the future. Now, I know that sounds a bit sort of wacko, but the empirical evidence supports that notion that how we choose to reward different bits of behavior, whether you're a young person in a classroom or in a college or at work, really does materially change how people behave going forward. And I really wish many more people would understand the power of what we call positive reinforcement. Because if they did, I think they might behave very differently sometimes in their relationships and in their work environments. For me, this is one of the most powerful, fundamental truths from psychology.
Mark, let me throw you forward years and years and years and years and years towards the end of your whole career in psychology, whenever that may be. What's the one thing that you really want to know? We always finish with this. What's the one question to do with psychology that you would really like to have answered and to understand?
I suppose a big thing I would love to know at the end of my career is how we can perhaps help people to think in different ways that makes the world a better place and stops us doing harm to one another in various kinds of ways, whether that be in the environment, whether that be in terms of conflicts, whether that be in our relationships. I think we have to have a real think about what we believe and why and how that affects behavior in order to improve the societies in which we live.
Well, look at that. All about how we work with a lot of other people and how you can spot patterns with our own psychology. It's been a real joy to chat to you, Emeritus Professor Mark McDermott. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, before we go, remember we answered a question, didn't we, from Maisie, who wanted to know all about dolphins holding their breath. We dived under the ocean with Alison Wood. Well, we can go back there now with another ocean genius. Marina Ventura is back, looking at all of the oceans and how they're really important for us humans.
Marina Ventura's Ocean Adventure, supported by the Natural Environment Research Council, the science of the natural world.
Yasu, adventurers! That's Greek for hello! I'm having a bit of a rest today, swimming in the warm Aegean Sea around the Greek islands. It's beautifully blue and warm, perfect for relaxing. Seas aren't just good fun, they're mega super important in loads of ways for humans like us, even when we just take a breath of air. Phytoplankton in the water provides half of the oxygen that we breathe, and in the future, biofuel from seaweed could run our cars and heat our houses. Clever, huh? I'm going to dry off and have a sunbathe on the beach. Phew! And as well as that, the sea provides a whole toolkit for scientists. Here we have some amazing anemones. They're handy too. One called the bubble tip anemone produces a protein that can be used to colour in other microscopic samples. Not quite like felt tip pens. The bubble tip produces a brilliant red colour under fluorescent light, and other proteins from other forms of sea life provide other colours. All these colours help scientists see the different parts of specimens when they're looking at them under the microscope. It's even thought we could find a cure for many diseases from the ocean, even the common cold. Bless you. Sea life might not sneeze, but viruses affect all forms of life. One tiny algae can defend itself brilliantly against viral attack by performing a magic trick. If it is attacked by viruses, the algae responds by completely changing its physical appearance, making it impenetrable to the deadly virus. It's called the Cheshire Cat algae because it can change so quickly and the virus just doesn't recognise it anymore. Imagine if we could do that. Let's find out what other treasure can be found in the sea with Map app, the electronic essential for every explorer. It's in my rucksack. Hang on. Oh, that's not it. I thought I'd packed it near the top. My lovely pink wellies, but I won't be needing them today. Oh, here it is.
Hello. Gosh, it's hot in here. You want a fact about cooling down?
Not today. We're finding out how the oceans benefit us.
Ah, well, I've got the perfect fact for that. A way of taking stock of the treasures in the ocean is by bioprospecting, collecting and analysing samples. And one scientist who's at the forefront of bioprospecting is Craig Venter. His yacht Sorcerer 2 is rather like an environmentally friendly floating laboratory, big enough to cross oceans and manoeuvrable enough to go wherever it's needed to collect samples. Once, during a short stay around Bermuda, more than 1.2 million new genes and more than 1,800 species of microbes were identified, including 148 previously unknown bacteria.
Amazing! That's all we have time for today, but join us soon for more mysteries from the deep. Doodle pip, adventurers!
Marina Ventura's Ocean Adventure, a Fun Kids production in association with the Natural Environment Research Council, the science of the natural world.
And that is it for the Fun Kids Science Weekly. Thank you so much for popping along on this incredible extraterrestrial adventure. We just heard from Marina Ventura. You've got loads more brilliant podcasts that you can listen to and make the most of wherever you're listening to this. Google, Apple, Spotify, places like this. They're on the free Fun Kids app and at funkidslive.com too. If you have a question, make sure you send that as a voice note to me on our app or on the website. And Fun Kids are our children's radio station from the UK. You can listen all around the country on the app. Get to funkidslive.com, or best, easiest way, I think, open up your smart speaker, wake it up and say, play Fun Kids. I'll see you next week.